Greetings from ABC Acres. I'm Grant Shadden, and I'm out here in our thistle patch to talk about another method for getting rid of weeds or simply plants growing where we don't want them to grow. Now, I will say this, thistles have a lot of ecological benefits to them. They're helping to repair the soil, a lot of times in disturbed soil sites, or if the soil is tending towards acidic. If soil has been overgrazed, it's almost like an ecosystem's response to protect that land for a spell to try and rebuild organic matter, to rebuild nutrient. They have nice deep roots where they're mining up minerals from the subsoil and bringing that up top. But you can also see with all these flowers that are coming in and then all the seed that comes from it, once they set in, they can really take over an area like they have here. Now, we have thistle on the property and some of the edge sites and more of our untouched areas, and we're okay with that. They provide some food for some bird populations, the seeds do, and even now our bees are feasting on the blossoms of the thistle, and we have let this thistle go to flower on purpose to allow the bees to get some food from it before we are to cut it down. And you can cut it down a number of different ways. If you have a brush mower, which we do, you can use that. A lot of people don't have access to one, and so I want to show a method for clearing land that I learned while I was living in Sierra Leone, West Africa. And you simply have your machete and then a stick. And I didn't have a stick handy, so I took some of that mullein, that tall plant growing there, which is another great soil building plant with different uses, and found another purpose in the pretty sturdy stalk and cut a bracing stick for myself. So if you've ever wondered what you can do with all your thistle, this'll help you out. It's so bad, it's good. But simply you take your bracing stick and you just put a little tension on the plant, and then you chop, and you can get down low and cut those down. Now, the bees aren't particularly happy that I'm doing this, but if you are going to use a brush mower, I would highly recommend doing it when the bees aren't so active. Early morning hours or right before sunset, when they're kind of starting to go back for the evening. That way, if you're mowing, you'll really reduce potential bee loss from them going underneath your mower blades. So I'm using a machete to, one, demonstrate the purpose, but also since it's the middle of the day and they're very active here, I don't want to run them over with the mower and kill them. So I have a pitchfork or a rake. If you want to remove the biomass from the area, you can compost it. This will be going into our composting trench. Some of it will be going into the goat pens to feed the goats. They like thistle. And we even had a Facebook friend of ours say that he feeds the thistle leaves to his tilapia in his aquaponics system, and that they really go after it pretty aggressively. And it doesn't surprise me, it's very high in nutrient, and there's actually parts of the thistle that are edible for humans as well, if you can get around those thorny spines. Now, if we were confident that none of this had gone to seed, we could just chop and drop it and use it as a mulch. However, we know we're going to be making this space into a lavender and flower garden patch with a nice shade pergola structure and sitting areas. And so when thistle starts to dry out, those little spiny, pokey thorns on the edges of the leaves, well, they'll go right through your jeans if you're kneeling down trying to plant or do any further weeding. And so we will remove this because we know we'll be coming back to it before this has all decomposed. So I'm going to keep going here just a little bit. You can see the technique. It's much more so about the wrist than swinging your whole arm, which is very important, especially when you're doing this for a while. It's much more efficient. So I can just simply take put a little tension up and chop right through without having to touch all the pokey parts of the plant. I don't have to grab anything and just cut them down. And I can continue to clear. And now I'm to the point where I'll probably grab my pitchfork and start clearing this area out and putting it in the back of our farm truck to compost it into rich future soil and to feed it to some of our goats. Some people will even take things like this and make what they call like a weed fertilizer tea, where you simply take this, chop it up a little bit more, put it in like a Rubbermaid trash can with a lid, and then cover over the surface of your biomass, your thistles or whatever other weeds, with water and let it sit for 4 to 6 weeks to ferment into this kind of not necessarily pleasant smelling sludge that you can then dilute with 10 parts water to 1 part of your weed tea and use it as a fertilizer in the garden. And it will really enrich the soil with those minerals. Now, it's not like an activated aerated compost tea where you're putting good microorganisms in. It's much more so about the minerals because of the fermentation process. Well, I'm gonna wait until a later time to finish this off when the bees aren't so active. I do want to give them every opportunity to continue to get as much feed out of the thistle as possible before removing this, before it goes to seed, and then using this in several valuable ways on our permaculture farmstead here at ABC Acres. And we encourage you to do the same thing. If you have small areas of thistle, using leather gloves and pulling it out by the root is going to be a more effective and accelerated way of ridding a space of thistle that you don't want. But when you have a large area like this where you simply do not have the time or the manpower to pull it by hand, and you don't want to punish yourself that much, using something very simple like an inexpensive machete and whatever kind of stick or rigid bracing pole you can find will quickly make work of cutting it down, weakening that plant. You will have to revisit it as it will regrow to want to go to seed, but you can use it as a resource in your landscape. Well, if you have any questions about this video, you can put them in the comment section below. And as always, thanks for watching.